awesome, the broadcast. Aloha, guys. I'm here live. Fun to be doing another show. So I'm working on a TED Talk, and the process of doing a TED Talk involves preparing by applying. You got to apply to hundreds and hundreds of TED Talks, which all happen all over the world. I'm applying to ones in the U.S. since I don't have the budget to travel far distances, but I'm gonna keep applying, and it involves a 1-minute application video which I've completed, and then tell about yourself, and then you send it off to all these different events around the country. And my talk is oriented around marriage and preparing for it. I'm debating on titles. I recently came up with this idea of the efficient path to marriage as a potential good title, because for me, it's not about, who's wants to get married. It's about a person who's decided, okay, I do want to get married. In other words, only be with one just be with one person in your life, and so, that's like, it's a big decision. You've got to think far ahead into the future. Like, how would I feel in 20 years if I was with this person? And I think there are so many elements that can distract from that thought process, such as thinking about, oh, they seem attractive, and they, you have to think of a person as if they were isolated on an island with both of yourselves, and they're coexisting. Could you live in harmony? All right, and so, but before I get into that, I'd like to start from a more abstract perspective of the universe speaking, right? If we are consciousness, then we created women, and I think we created them, and we created men to distract ourselves from being ourselves. We don't want to live in an incarnation or another reincarnation thinking that, oh, we're consciousness and we're temporarily existing in this form. No, we want to be fully immersed. We want to be into it, excited. As a matter of fact, I'll grab my phone here, and I'm going to bring up the chat too to see if anyone's in the chat, because I appreciate people who are either into the subject or maybe they're not into the subject. Maybe this could be an observation of a logical process, because that's what I want it to be. And maybe you can apply that to your life in another way that's not related to relationships. Maybe in your career you're trying to find, okay, what are some logical steps? And my intention is that the logic and efficient approach that I'm sharing here will be relevant to any aspect of life. Just having a more certainty and knowing, who you're dealing with, knowing why, and knowing what the trajectory is. Grab my phone here. We'll check in with the chat. See how the chat's doing. So if you are listening right now, please say the number one thing that you'd like to hear, or that you think about people being in love. Or okay, so I see no one's in the chat yet, so I'm going to type aloha from Hawaii, and let's get started, guys. All right, so efficiency. Some people think that dating and perhaps online dating, in the past there were matchmakers, or they were arranged marriages, or there were different ways. And the presumption is that everyone thinks that the way that they're moving is the best way. Because people don't do things that they don't think is the best way. They think, well, this seems right. This seems like the right way to play this out. So, for instance, people might think, well, you have to have intimacy before marriage so that you can be familiar with one another's physical forms. And so my answer to that, as an example, would be that the usefulness of the internet allows us to communicate via web camera, which is actually, in a way, it's a safe distance away from the person. And I think that that should only occur after you assess other areas of compatibility before intimacy. But let's start off with the beginning. So, self-knowledge, right? And self-knowledge is having a list of people that you, of reasons that you like, certain things you like, certain things that you dislike. Simple. Probably, at most, 20 items in each list. And this should allow you to refine your focus to someone who you could truly coexist with. So, let's say, okay, so there's different elements to this. There's avoiding the wrong person. There's selecting the right person. And then there's like the cultural aspect of it, of how do you approach it, and then there's the self-knowledge aspect. So what should I start off with? Well, I kind of started self-knowledge. Self-knowledge, it has to do with self-control, managing your own desires, and making yourself resistant to the external realm. See, the internal realm is your body. It's how you feel. Specifically, it's your basic needs, which you can manage. It's your sexual desires, which you can also manage by self-intimacy. And it's also your emotional wants, which when you put you affirm yourself, when you make yourself, you compliment yourself, when you do activities, the easiest way to activate your emotional center is to exercise and be creative, because all that and doing activities you enjoy, it stabilizes your emotions, so you feel like your emotional needs are met. And these are some lower energies. In Buddhism, they're referred to as the chakra energies, lower energies, and that allows you to get to the heart space. So doing this every day, needs, desires, and wants, managing that every day, guess what? It allows you to think and decide from the heart. So then you're deciding not from these other kind of animal energies that are always there, but you're deciding from your actual conscious, what makes you uniquely who you are, your own soul, your own personality. And so that's self-knowledge. Pretty straightforward. It's self-knowledge, self-love, and self-control. And then the next question is, I'm going to talk a little of the culture of it. So the idea of premarital intimacy, some people would pursue it because they're trying to figure out someone. But the misnomer for me is that I used to think marriage was a marriage ceremony. But now I believe that marriage is when you are attaching yourself to someone with intimacy. And not just physical intimacy, but verbal intimacy, such as one would have on a date. And all of this, it attaches you to someone. It makes you think about them. Even if you were to break up, you would still have memories of them, and so on. And obviously, these intimacy is more intimate than a marriage ceremony. So that's the false idea of marriage, that's like a huge deal. All it is it's a public representation of the fact that you want to be physically intimate and connect. But when you don't go through that, see, people think that, well, I don't need to be married to show that I'm that we're in love. But if you don't do that, it's like it's like if you don't get married first, then it's not all public. That you're telling the world, okay, we're together, we're not available for anyone else. We have, formalized our commitment to each other and thought about our life trajectories and so on, and we've decided to publicly, represent that. And so that formality leads to getting attached to someone, but in a good way. And all the other aspects, it's partial intimacy. And if your goal is marriage, then it's easy to confuse one another. It's like a tease, right? It's because you're not fully committed, but your bodies are in a way fully committed. So that's the cultural aspect. That's the self-knowledge. Also, the cultural aspect is obviously like in schools, they're mixed gender, and they actually promote intimacy, such as proms. So that's something to think about. And also the idea of the virgin. The benefits of a virgin are what? Well, most men would prefer to be with a virgin, and this is because you experiment together and you don't have memories and comparisons and, like I said, attachments to other experiences you've had with other partners. And so, but in order to create that world, it requires that all the men be virgins as well. So, but it benefits all society. If that's what you want. If you want to get married and if you want to be with a virgin, then you have to promote a culture that makes that a reality. So now let's get into. I want to get into avoiding the wrong person, because that's a fun one. So actually, before we do that, so that's the second part of this. I covered the being self-aware, and then the culture aspect, and then there's avoiding the wrong person and selecting the right person. But before we do any of that, I want to tell you what my 1 minute presentation I gave to do the TED Talks. I want to get into that. Let's see here. Let me just check on the chat here. Live chat. It says chat has been moved. I guess we'll try to. Oh, I see. I got it. Okay. Yes. So let's see here. So here's what I said to the organizers of different TED events, or what I will be sending to them over time. I said. I started off by saying the 50% marriage failure rate creates broken families, financial distress, heartbreak, and regret, and then skepticism about marriage, right? People being like, is marriage even worth it? Because obviously, so many are failing. So then people choose other forms of relationships, and they and it results in such things as pregnancies that aren't planned, even stuff like STDs, but it's just in general feeling objectified, like the person doesn't like you for who you are, but they like you for because you can meet either their needs, their desires, or their wants, which are lower level stuff that if you don't meet yourself daily, like I was suggesting, you're gonna be controlled by those base energies. So in the 1 minute application video, I continue to say that marriages fail due to a lack of preparedness. And after years of studying relationships, which I have, and self-improvement, I've developed a way to prepare for a strong marriage. I'm doing that myself. So step one is like I was talking about in my notes. By the way, the notes I was talking about earlier, that's all about what the whole speech is gonna be about, right? I'm saying choose no premarital intimacy, since intimacy equals marriage. And then I'm saying do a self-knowledge worksheet, and that increases your self-love. When you're in love with yourself, you don't want to go into like the energy of lust or seduction. You want to be in that frequency with yourself and other people. And then step 3 is to implement a daily action list, which I'll talk about. That's part of the preparation for the right one. And and then in conclusion, on my 1 minute, because this is all about the structure, the way you structure your either 1 minute application video or the way you structure your whole talk. It's like there's a way to do it, which I've been studying, and then so this is the conclusion it's like, well, what's the result if people do this? If people follow this process, what's going to happen? Well, I'm saying it'll lead to a high rate of successful marriages. I'm thinking 95%, because if people start getting into this and it'll also reduce the amount of people who are feeling lonely and etc. And then I say, I'm John Remis, and I'd enjoy presenting my ideas on your TEDx stage. So that's that. That's my 1 minute video, right? So let's go on back to my detailed notes for getting ready for the speech. Avoiding the wrong person, right? You start with not getting manipulated and not trying to seduce other people. And the obvious start to that is, like I was saying, manage your desires, daily self-intimacy. And then it gets into more subtle aspects, like respecting people. When people pursue, we can call it premarital intimacy. It's just because they're not into the person enough to want to marry them. So and it's a paradox, because people are basically seducing people to have sex with them because they just don't care about that person enough. And so then how are ways to avoid that? Well, the basics of manipulation are getting people like either into your car or obviously drugs and alcohol, into your house, giving them things so they feel psychologically obligated to give back to you. It's all this thing about asserting yourself as an authority position and so on. And so just be conscious of that. Avoid that. Or I think some of us unconsciously do these things, or maybe culturally we'll give gifts to each other. But the thing is it's important to not give something to someone unless they want it. Like, don't say, hey, come with me to the movies. First ask them if they want to, what I mean, that type of thing. And be careful of people who try to just insist, like, all right, have this food, you'll feel better. Just pause for a second and then just say to them if you want it or not. Even people that you trust, it's just these habits of how we let people's energy into our lives. So, all right, let's see. So avoiding the wrong person, right? Here's another trick. It's what I call the cigarette clause, where if somebody smokes cigarettes, you're not gonna want them, right? I mean, at least this is true for people who don't smoke. And just the same, there are people who have other qualities that will easily turn you off. So you should know those, and you should look at them, so that way you're not just distracted by a person you perhaps physical attraction, visually appealing, but that there's elements that so it's that level of self-control, right? And it's like there, bottom line is you don't want to say that you're available or looking for someone. You should say that you're committed to you're married to yourself, you're married to your values, and it's just a transition from this kind of hoping that someone will like you and trying to make make somebody like you. Like you want to use signals, all right? And maybe this is already jumping into how do you select the right person. You want to use signals that say, like, for example, a hat that says something that's important to you, or even your style, be conscious of your style. And then maybe, like, I wear a wedding band. That's an indication that I'm, interested in marriage. Even though I'm not married, I'm like something that it's part of my life. But I am married to myself, right? So. Yeah, and then there's this idea that well, you don't want to be alone in life. Well, I mean, I don't feel alone. The concept of aloneness, or it's more of an emotion of, and if you listen to yourself, like journaling, and if you do the activities you enjoy, you're just not going to feel alone. And I think this is more applicable to men. It's easier for men to have this, be able to exist in a solitary way and go through life. So, but I'm sure women can make an effort to find out what they like to do and do it until they find someone else that likes to do similar things. And so here, let's get right into it. Selecting the right person. Starting with wanting somebody that wants you. And the energy of love. If you're meeting your lower energies, right? In the energy of love, what do people do? They want authenticity. They want people to be themselves, and so that allows you to not accidentally be with the wrong person or like try to convince them to be, like who you are. And there's little mental tricks like how do you feel when you're around them? Do you like the way you act when you're around them? And would you push them around in a wheelchair if they were injured? Would you still want to be with them over the course of life? Like, okay, so and then let's get into like the actual real events. So let's say for men, and then maybe for everyone it's different, their approach. But for me, my idea of it is, if I'm at a place that I go to, if I'm in the area that I frequent, then I see a woman, or because if you want, okay, so if you know who you are, it means that you're probably selected a person that is in a similar area that wants to live in that area for their life. And then so what I'm going to do, for example, is pay attention to, look around and look at women that I'm interested in. And if they kind of see me looking, and they show physical signals that she's interested, then what I would do, and this is stuff like, trying to look attractive, or maybe they glance back, or just you get the idea, like maybe a little posing, a little posture that shows, interest. So what I would do is, and by the way, all this doesn't happen until you really believe that you're ready for marriage. And so, like if you approach someone and you're like still getting ready financially or emotionally, for marriage, like if you want to have children, you should obviously have money before doing that. But if you're still doing that, then you approach someone and you're not ready for marriage, that means you're not ready. So that means that you could at best be whatever it is, boyfriend and girlfriend, but that's not fully, that's not marriage, right? So she shows physical signs, then and you're ready for marriage. Then what you do is you could like ask her, does she have goals of getting married? And then if she says that she does, then you could say, I'd like you to know more about me, and then you could either give her your business card, or you could tell her your social media name, or maybe your website. She can look more into you, and then let her take it from there. And then you could say, if you're interested, if you find interest in me, then message me. What that does is it does several things. It shows you that you want her to know who you are. You're not trying to hide anything, and it gives it flips it into her. She knows that you're interested, and then it gives her a chance to look at you, and if she's interested, then she can follow up. So it's safer, at least for her, because it's not like you're asking for her phone number. It's not like you're trying to make her like you. It's like you kind of have to come at it of, like I said, a mindset of strength and confidence and self-love. Like they call it being of principle, and that relates to like people who are religious. But everyone should have their own religion. This is not about, and if you are religious, if you have a certain, you identify in a certain way, then yeah, you should probably try to find a spouse that has the same religion. But for a lot of people, they have different religion. They have nuanced, like a lot of people, like fitness is their religion, and that is useful, because a lot of people are not physically fit. They may look attractive, but they could have cholesterol in their veins, even if they look fit. Or they could be slightly overweight, and men may be attracted to that overweightness, but that leads to deteriorating health. So we need to be conscious of these things and think long term. And like I was saying, many people just aren't that healthy. So that's something to consider if that's part of their culture, and like I said, if it is, and then the goal of marriage is to get through life problems and to be able to be yourself around someone, and to that they'll like you, because even if you're flawed, but they'll like you because you have the same foundation. Your foundation isn't in just physical attraction, because the studies have all shown that fades away after a few years, even if you are attracted to each other. But like, let's say you're in a relationship. What happens if you see someone that you really like, and they really like you? Well, you're not available, regrettably. So the idea of principles is, and you can see woman as being a magnet for men's energy, and this can be a great thing if you're in love, right? You're in love. You have the same values, so you're basically giving her your surplus time and money, and she converts that into either having a child, or women like to talk a lot, so they're more willing to say promote ideas, or just be supportive to you and your work, And even if you're not going to have children, you need to think of life in terms of if you did have children, because that will show you what type of values or legacy you want to promote into the future. In other words, in 100 years or 200, if you're gone by then, what type of world do you want to reincarnate into? So, okay, let's see. I'm scanning through my notes here. Let's see. Do we have any messages here? I'm just checking on the chat. Make sure the chat's doing okay. Okay, yeah, chat looks good. Chatty. All right. Let's see. So bottom line is, think of it like a process of elimination. Like, what are all the things that you can do to avoid, and this is something you could apply to life in general. Like, how do you, engineer something? How do you figure it out to what it is, or to solve the problem? Like how do you solve the problem of making sure that you don't experience heartbreak, or feeling like, regret that you were in the wrong relationship, right? And so basically it's a focus. How are people successful? They're focused. And it's work. It's work to get ready for marriage. Focus on your ideal partner. So let's see. And it's about your joy. Like, you can't be happy if you're with the wrong person. You're gonna be your body may be happy. You may have limited resources, so you're actually helping each other, like, meet your basic needs, and then you may be meeting each other's intimate desires, and then helping each other emotionally. But what about the heart? What about the truth? What about when it's like the human aspect of it, right? So that's the preparation, and then I should say, to finalize that. So selecting the right person. What if you do meet someone, and then the woman responds, and then she says, yeah, I'm interested in you. You want to go on a date? Then I would say that I would rather us communicate on the internet. On the internet, you can talk to each other. You can even share, personal, revealing details about your lives, and even do, video chat. You can do all of that online, and that's a safe space that you don't have to worry about your hormones or your own desires, like, seducing you. So I've tried to simplify it, and this is what I want to talk about on my TED Talk, and this is for people who have decided that, hey, you know what, I'm either ready for marriage, or maybe you're just curious about it, or you're upset, or you want to know why do marriages fail, And so I'm trying to bring this all to a level of consciousness, and let me. That's basically where I'm going with it. It's just this idea of efficiency, of like what's the quickest way to do something? Like, is it to go on 20 dates throughout the year, and to different women, and try to, or men, and try to figure things out, or I mean, with the internet, and even if we didn't have the internet, if we just paid close attention to people and looked at them and really knew who we are as an individual, and used little signals to broadcast that, like having a shirt with a certain, maybe it's like your religion, or your, but the bottom line is the places you'll go in life, or you'll frequent, are likely where you'll meet someone that, let's say you shop at the same store. Also to consider is, how important is it to you? Like, some people relate to each other because they're maybe both passionate fans of Apple products, but does that mean that you'll both agree on, how the same child rearing standards, or like, heavy stuff, like if the pregnancy is malformed, will you abort the child? Will the mother do that? And so it's these kinds of difficult questions that, or would you want to support your, the quote unquote parents-in-law? But I don't believe in using the words parents, because I want to be with, as an adult, I want to be with people I don't refer to as parents, but just for technical, legal, conversational terms and conversational purposes, I'm saying, like, for that, would you want to help them if they had troubles? I mean, if I considered them my spiritual brother or sister, then definitely. But if they're just... So these are all things that people need to think about, and there are many lists online that describe more of what I'm saying. But I'm more into the preemptive aspect, like getting ready for marriage, like getting into the vibration of love yourself, and then uh, only sharing that with somebody because you want to experience love, and not letting somebody into your life just because you want them, desire them, because then that gives them control over you. That then they're controlling your second chakra, and you're not activating it yourself. So there's no control over your life. You can't even get to the third chakra. You're like stuck in that lower, and then you can't ever get into the vibration of love because you don't love them, so you can't go there together. You can't go into that space together because you don't love the same things. Love is a love of values, mutually shared values. And people say they love each other. I feel like a lot of times they say that, but they don't know what that means technically speaking. So I'm excited about bringing that to the forefront of people and they're living their best life in connection. So thank you guys for sharing this time. One final check in the chat, make sure everyone's doing okay. Let's see. Live chat. Oh wow, yay, Mafia. Hey man, yeah, so things are good. I just did a review of my, I'm preparing to do a TED Talk, and it's going to be fun. I'm already finished the application video I need to send to many different locations that are doing TED events, and yeah, and I'm feeling good. Glad to share with you guys. Aloha. Do comment. If you've gotten to this point in the broadcast, comment and just be honest. Sometimes I get feedback like I don't know about marriage because I haven't been married, but hey, that's like saying I don't know how to avoid a car accident because I've never been in a car accident. We can learn from each other's mistakes, and the best part is when people talk about their mistakes and then they teach the upcoming generation or their people around them, and we just build on our knowledge. And then the question might be like, why don't we know all this stuff already? Well, it's because a lot of human existence has been about survival. It's been about the woman needing the man for her basic, for her to meet her basic needs, and when they have children, that's the only option. But now that women have some choice, I mean, the question ultimately is, in a like these guys who are big into the whole red pill community, what they'll say is, well, I don't like American women; they're promiscuous. So when I'm ready for marriage, I'm going to go to a country where women are virgins and they're protected by their fathers, and there's some more traditional experience there, and gender separation where the young men and women aren't in schools, where it's hard for them to avoid intimacy. It's not fair to ask them to do that when you force them to be in the schools together. So these red pill people, as they call them, or call themselves, it's the only way that they can win and get what they want, a virgin wife, is for them to not pursue women, and it's kind of like the wealthiest men in society. They kind of have an influence over the narrative that happens, and so. But then you ask yourself, well, what is wealth? Is it accumulated resources and being able to attract mates, or is it making it so everyone in the world, at least many of us, can have a more loving society, and that's oriented around love instead of it just being a whole competitive, like who's who can be with who. And the irony is, when people do that, they think they're might call themselves alpha males, but when they're with many women, then those women are with many other men. So it's sort of this polyamorous society. So I just don't think, I think there's a better way, and there's a better way to experience love, and it all comes down to people regaining hope in the process of why people get married, and how what's the best, the best way to do that to create solid marriages, because there's so many things to confuse us and distract us, and so we need to make sure that doesn't happen and just focus on somebody who, imagine, I'll end with this, imagine walking into, even though you're not married yet, imagine walking into some public setting or a party, and say you have a wedding band on like I do, and you know that you're married to your future spouse, you know that you're going to be like have the same values, and you pretty much know what they're going to be like, and so you walk in with confidence, the confidence of being married. Imagine if you were actually married, you wouldn't feel worried about trying to impress or chase anyone. So that's the feeling I want you to leave this video with, and probably that's how I'll end my TED Talk. It's like knowing an efficient path to marriage. And if you think you know a more efficient way, then please add a comment. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe you could offer a link. But yeah, that's what I have to say, you guys. And so aloha. Fun time watching. I enjoyed watching myself, and I'll be able to review this and then apply it to doing my TED Talk. So thank you guys. Oh, I got another comment. Okay, if you've never been in a car accident, you won't know what it feels like. I mean, that's suggesting that people need to get divorced and experience heartbreak in order to want to avoid it. And all I have to do is see people suffer in order to want to avoid it. Derp, how are you? Aloha. All right, thanks you guys for joining the live show. And yeah, be looking forward to me doing a TEDx Talk. It's going to be a lot of fun. That's what I'm going to be working on this year. So aloha for now. That's it.